The Avalon has long since been one of Toyota's most popular sedans, sitting right above the Camry. And while it's never been a super exciting product, the folks over at TRD have decided to try and spice things up a bit. Now keep in mind, these are the same people that gave us the 4Runner TRD Pro, the Tundra TRD Pro, and so forth. So now we have this, the 2020 Avalon TRD, and we're gonna check it out, but first make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. So now we're behind the wheel of the 2020 Toyota Avalon TRD, and let's start with that name because TRD stands for Toyota Racing Development, and that is their more sporty department, so to speak. Think of like an M Sport to a BMW, an AMG to a Mercedes, that sort of relationship. And what they've created here is a spicier, sportier version of the regular Avalon. And now, while you might assume that it maybe has a different powertrain, it doesn't. This is the same V6 engine as the standard Avalon, except it makes 301 horsepower in this application. Now, is that enough? I mean, I wouldn't say it's sporty because remember, this is a heavy sedan and 300 horsepower just about gets it moving, but it doesn't pull or feel hard or fast in any way. But that really gives you a massive hint as to what the actual demeanor is of this car. Because although it has the sort of sporty look on the outside, it's actually surprisingly relaxed. I don't want you to think that this is a super sporty sedan because it's not. This has a very, very relaxed demeanor, much like the standard Avalon. The 8-speed automatic transmission comes from, you guessed it, the standard Avalon. And it's definitely tuned towards comfort. It's not the slowest ever on downshift, but it's not exactly super fast to react either. It's okay in sort of city driving scenarios, but if you get into more of a sporty type of environment, it begins to kind of lag behind. You really do get a sense that this is more for a daily rather than a sports car. So let's talk about how it drives because it's not all too different from a standard Avalon. The steering itself, there's not a whole lot of feel coming through. The steering rack itself, definitely more towards being smooth rather than quick, sharp, and agile. It's very much standard Avalon, and that carries also to the suspension because even though this Avalon is slightly lowered, it's not stiff in any way, which now you then begin to see the upsides of this car because what it's offering you is a sort of sporty look with the same sort of comfortable Avalon ethos hidden right underneath. And so this suspension actually manages to lower the car slightly, but retained all of the comfort that you'd expect from the standard Avalon. The result is a ride that is supremely comfortable. As a sporty sedan, this is one of the most comfortable I've ever driven. That has mostly to do with the fact that this is tuned towards being a daily driver rather than a sporty sedan that you want to take out on the weekends. There's nothing that level of exciting here, but that actually works well because most people that buy these cars, yes, you know, the standard normal human being doesn't care about lap times or anything of that nature, but what they do care about is comfortable seats, comfortable ride, the things that actually matter on a daily basis. So let's talk about the biggest change from this and the standard Avalon. That is the exterior. So if you look at that front bumper and its massive grille, I know people complain about BMW grills getting too large, but this one is huge. But surprisingly, it actually looks good. I don't know if it's the red shade of paint or the sort of the side skirts, which complement it well, but it looks really good. And to my surprise, I had a lot of people actually staring at me while driving this thing the last week or so, which I wasn't expecting. So on the sides, you'll find these black side skirts, which actually work towards that sort of sportiness. They extend from the lower parts of the door, and they actually look great. But I think they play an integral part at making this car look lower than it actually is. So you might still be able to get that sort of lowered look without sacrificing your ride. And so on all four corners, you'll find 19-inch wheels, and you might say 19, that's not that big, especially when you consider then there are cars with 20, 21, 22-inch wheels. But that goes back to this car's main ethos, which is looking sporty without sacrificing its actual comfort and its ride. The rear continues a sort of sporty vibe with a central rear diffuser, which is flanked on either side by the TRD catback exhaust. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a super loud and noisy exhaust. It's definitely more like giving you a bit of boom down low, but then once you get up to speed, it really, really quiets down. So in scenarios like this on the highway, or if you're trying to listen to music or something, it's absolutely dead quiet. On the rear trunk panel, you'll find a small lip spoiler, which I think looks great. I mean, all of these accents actually work with the original design of the Avalon, rather than looking like you just stuck a bunch of sporty bits onto a standard Avalon. They look very well thought out, and because of that cohesiveness, it makes the overall car look way sharper than a standard Avalon. So it really begins to beg the question, should the sporty look have a sporty powertrain to back it up? And fortunately, that seems to be up to you to decide, because Toyota has been playing around with TRD Pro versions of the 4Runner, the Tundra, the Sequoia. They've given us the Camry TRD. They're definitely leaning into that enthusiast market. So I'm assuming if enough interest were to pop up for a fast Camry or a fast Avalon, I'm sure they're game to build it. That sporty design carries over to the interior as well, because you'll notice all around me there is red stitching absolutely everywhere. The seats get red stitching. I have a red seat belt, as you can see, and what it does is it never lets you forget that you're in a sporty Avalon. You'll even see there's TRD engraved right behind my head, and there's reminders absolutely everywhere that this is no standard Avalon. I actually like all of these interior touches because there's some sporty cars that you get into and they look fantastic on the outside, but once you settle in, they have a very boring all black interior with no varying textures or nothing actually interesting to look at. So I think they've actually done a good job here of differentiating this from the standard Avalon. Now, this center display here is probably my favorite part of the interior, because you'll see it actually blends from the lower part all the way up to the screen, and that houses your Toyota Infotainment system, your Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all that good stuff. The standard system is okay. I mean, Toyota has come a long way with their infotainment systems, and it's very easy to use. Actually, for the first time in a while, I found myself using the native system more than I did the Apple CarPlay, which really says something, because that means that the convenience of it is really there. Next, let's talk about the seats, because the seats are so freaking comfortable, and that probably has to do with the fact that they look like standard Avalon seats, maybe covered in a little bit of suede and leather to spice them up a bit, but it's still that original seat, and I actually really like that because it's supremely comfortable. The same way that the ride isn't compromised, the interior comfort isn't compromised either, meaning that you can actually swaft along in this car in supreme comfort all the time, and I actually think they look nice. The right accents, it all really ties in well. Now, not everything is perfect with the interior, of course, and one of the main drawbacks for me is a rattle that's been coming from the dashboard. I've been listening to it for almost a week now, and it's driving me nuts. Now, I get that that's not specific to all Avalons, but this particular car at $46,000 as tested does have a couple of interior creaks and rattles, leaving a little bit of build quality left to be desired. Now, in front of me, I have a traditional gauge cluster. This one does have a digital screen in the middle with flanked by 2 analog dials on either side. I think it works well. It's easy to read, and it's not complicated in the slightest. Everything here is very simple, but very good. So there's no complex adjustable dampening, there's no complex engine modes, there's nothing. There's a couple of eco, normal, and sport buttons here, but they don't really do a whole lot, at least that I can detect. They kind of all drive about the same. And I think that's actually a good thing. Everything here is very simple and easy to use, and also means that it's very cohesive. You don't have to have the car in the right setting for it to react how you want it to. It's kind of always set up to be this sort of comfortable, big sedan with a nice sporty look. So what we're left with here is a car with a bit of a split personality. If what you're looking for is an all-out sport sedan, then this pretty much isn't it. But if you're looking for something that's more of a comfortable sedan with a more aggressive appearance, then this is more to your liking. A lot of sports sedans nowadays are too stiff or way too sporty for daily driving. This here is sort of the best of both worlds, because you get the look, the very aggressive look, without compromising on ride quality or insulation or any of the creature comforts that you'd come to expect of a car in this price point. So that's really how I can sum up the Avalon TRD as a very sort of unusual mix of comfort and sport to create a sporty looking but not sporty acting sedan. And so I want to thank everybody for watching, and make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel.